So this week I have a pretty cool effect for creating a vintage photo look on an image that is new. Here I have this photo. It's probably shot recently, and we're going to make it look like it's really old. Not only that, we're going to put it inside of an old classic frame to really get the feel of an old-fashioned photograph. So the first thing is we need to make this image look a little bit older than it actually is. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually apply a color cast to this. If you remember, old photos like this are kind of black and white, and as they age over time, they tend to get a yellow tinge to them. So I'm going to go into the adjustment menu and choose hue saturation. And let's actually apply this as an adjustment layer, just so we're safe here. So I'm going to go over to the layers panel, and let's drag this out here so you can see. I'm going to go into the layer adjustment layer menu here and choose hue saturation. And right here, I'm going to go ahead and check on colorize, and you can see it goes ahead and colorizes the entire image. I'm going to move this over into a more yellowish tinge to it. You can see it's starting to get kind of that old-fashioned look. I'm going to drop the saturation down even further to around 15. You can see it almost kind of washes out a little bit. I'm actually going to boost that up to around 20, actually. There we go. So that's looking pretty good. So we've got the color taken care of, but it still doesn't look all that old. It still needs to have something to it. And if you remember, I mean, these really old photographs almost tend to have some kind of texture to them, especially if they've been subject to weather or anything like that. And you can use almost anything to generate this kind of effect. In fact, I'm going to use this image here, which is merely just some rusted metal. It's just a simple texture of rusted metal, but I really like what's going on here. There's some bubbling and different things happening in here that work really well. So the format is actually, the orientation is rather off. So what I'm going to do is first is go ahead and rotate this. Let's go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove the color information from this image by going into the adjustments, and we'll go into desaturate. Now let's go ahead and take that texture file and drag and drop it over to our working document. There it is. Now it came over relatively small, so we'll go ahead and scale it up. It is a texture, so I'm not worried about scaling it up at all to fill up the entire area of the image. There we go. So now what I want to do is to blend it with the image. I'm going to go ahead and change the blend mode from normal to soft light. And you can see it really starts to take on that texture and really kind of has a really worn out look to it. Now, what you can do is, because this layer has been desaturated and is essentially a black and white graphic, we can use our levels. I can just press Command or Control L to bring up my levels, and use the mid-tone slider here to push this to make it darker or lighter depending on which way you want to go. Photos like this tend to go lighter when they age like this, so we can really kind of bump up that texture and everything like that. You can see the difference there. So it's a subtle adjustment, but it does make a little bit, quite a bit of difference there. So there we have our photo is nicely aged. So we've gone from that to that. So the photo is aged and looks good. Now let's go and open up the frame we're going to use, which is this image right here. And we're going to go back over here. Now, what I want to do is, you'll notice over here on this image, we've got all the layers, but I want to go ahead and bring a flattened version over. But I want to keep this as layers just in case I want to make some changes later. So I'm going to go ahead and create a merged copy of what we're looking at here. So I'm going to hold down the Option key on the Mac, Alt on Windows, then go inside the pop-up menu here for the layers panel, and then go down here and choose Merge Visible. That will create a merged copy. Notice the layers are all still there, but now we have a merged copy. So before we bring the merged copy over, let's jump over to the file containing the frame here, and we have to do a couple of things to this. First thing is we need to extract it from the background. Now, because it's on a white background, it makes it easier, so I'm going to use the Magic Wand tool to just go ahead and select that background area. So just click anywhere in the background, and then go under Select, Inverse, and now the frame itself is selected. So I'm going to go ahead and press Command or Control J, and that's going to copy that selected area to its own layer. So now the frame is extracted. Now what I want to do is generate a selection of the inner shape, this inside frame area. So again, using that Magic Wand tool, I'm just going to click right in the middle, and it generates a selection of the whole area. I'm actually going to boost that tolerance up a little bit to about 20, so it gets a little bit more area. There we go. So now with that selection active, I'm going to jump back over here to the image and do a Select All, and then copy this to the clipboard. Let's go under Edit, go to Copy. This image is now in the clipboard. We'll jump back over here, With that selection active inside the frame, we're now going to go to Edit and choose Paste Special, and then choose Paste Into. And it places that image inside of that frame. Now, it is a little big. Notice over here in the Layers panel, it pasted the image on its own layer and has a layer mask generated based on that selection of that frame. Now you'll notice that the layer mask is not linked to that layer. So if I press Command or Control T and put this in Free Transform, and then press Command 0, it will expand the document out so I can see the transform handles. We'll just go ahead and scale this image in. And let's scale it in right here. Now I'm holding down the Shift key, of course, to keep it proportional, but I'm also holding down the Option key to scale it to the center of the layout. There we go. Or the center of the image. So we'll position that right about there. So now it's really kind of got that vintage feel to it. Now, what I want to do is, it just looks like there's a photo just sitting on this frame. There's really, in reality, there would actually be glass between us and the photo. So I want to create a sense of glass on here, and I'm going to do that with a separate shape. But what I'm going to do is generate a selection again based on this layer mask right here. So I'm going to go down and hold down the Command key, click right on that layer mask, it reloads that selection, create a new layer just above it, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a base color fill by pressing Shift Delete, not delete, and we'll choose 50% gray just as a base color fill, and there it is. So I can go ahead and deselect that. Now what I'm going to do is put a layer style on this. I'm just going to double click on it, or just go into the layer style menu down here in the effects and choose Bevel and Emboss. Inside of here, we're going to set the bevel. I'm actually going to turn off Use Global Light for one. And let's go ahead and increase the depth a little bit and really bump up the size. Now I'm going to take the angle. You'll see this target right inside this circle here. You can actually click on that and move that around and change the direction of the lighting. So I'm going to move it close to the center. So it looks like we're getting a glare of light right there on that edge. There it is right there. So take that depth down a little bit. And there we go. So now it looks like it's kind of like a glare with glass on it. Now the only problem is, of course, we're still seeing just the gray area. So all you need to do here is take the fill. Notice we've got the opacity and the fill. Take the fill setting and just take that down to 0. And there we have our light glare on our photo. So now what I want to do is create a merged copy of this. Just like we did a moment ago, I'm going to create a merged copy. I'm going to hold down the Option key, go over here to Merge Visible, creates a merged copy. Now I have another file that contains a simple background, so we can make this appear as though it's actually hanging on the wall. So we'll take that merged copy, again holding down the Shift key, drag and drop it over, and we'll go ahead and just scale it down just a little bit here. Now I can see a little bit of a white fringe around my frame here, and that's when I extracted it from that white background. So we'll just go to Layer, down here to the very bottom. It cuts off screen, but at the very bottom of the Layers menu, or the Layer menu, is the matting setting, and you're going to go inside there and choose Defringe, and then we'll set this to about 3, and then click OK, and you'll notice it takes care of that edge. Now to give it a little bit more depth and make it really look like it's hanging on this wall, let's go ahead and minimize these images. I'm going to go into that layer and add a drop shadow. Let's go into the effects menu and we'll go add drop shadow. Turn off global light once again. I'm just going to go in here and interactively move my shadow by moving the layer style panel out of the way and just drag the shadow down. We'll bump up the size a little bit, and now it really appears like it is hanging on the wall. And there is our vintage photo taken from a number of different elements, and we were able to combine them together and really give that vintage look and like it's hanging on the wall of some old-fashioned wallpaper. Very cool.